Chapter 5 of Nivens and Akeens. Pyper, San Diego. It was different in mainland Akea compared to Niveden. For one, people were busier, especially in the trading market. All types of products could be found here, which was pretty convenient because from where I came from, Niveden, the food source was minimal, and having a variety of selections was a privilege. A stall of green apples was right in front of me, and I grinned at the shiny produce. My favorite, I told myself. I took one and bit into it, tasting the sourness and sweetness of its juice. "Hey!" the peddler shouted. Then his voice thinned in fear. "A ghost?" Other peddlers glanced his way while some passers-by gasped, pointing to the apple that I was holding. Everybody was looking at the apple with wide eyes. Oh no, Father would scold me if he learned about this incident. I made the apple invisible like me, and the spectators' mouths gaped at the same time. It was so funny that I was very tempted to make the apple reappear and make it disappear again, but I resisted the urge. Grinning because of my feat, I moved away from them while being extra careful not to bump against anyone lest my identity would be revealed. I saw the boy Kino. I remembered his name clearly. This time, he was running away from two other boys who looked the same age as him. I took one last bite of the apple before letting its core fall to the ground. I ran after him. The two boys chased him down, and I covered my mouth to silence a moan as I watched them trip Kino with the Earth's sudden eruption. As Kino fell, my heart went out to him, and I wanted to come out of hiding and help him. But I could not because it is against the Niven tenets. All I could do was feel part of his sadness, anger, and frustration. As he picked up the coins, he could not retrieve them all, I made sure of that. Did it make me a terrible person, though? I hoped not. The coins were so pretty as they lay on the ground, shining and reflecting sises, so much that I was tempted to pick up a few and keep them for me. When Kino was facing the other boys, I thought they would clobber him like they usually did, so I silently crept beside him. To my surprise, however, the bullies left without even touching him. True, using the ground to throw him down was harsh, but the bullies did not punch him anymore. Niveden is a valley surrounded by 4 mountains. Mount Senon to its east, Mount Anale to its south, Mount Gali to its north, and Mount Rikas to its west. The trees in our province are old, and our people care for them because each tree holds a tree house. According to our elders, when the former Emperor Northsum Mendel Amark still ruled Akea, Niveden was one of Akea's 14 provinces. There is Amare, Direla, Minoan, Lakea Island, and some others that I can no longer recall. What struck me as weird was that no Akeen ever discovered what the Niven's powers were. I kept asking my father why, and he refused to answer, until finally, he got tired of my incessant questioning. He had told me, "Pyper, it's an agreement between the oldest blood. Between the Emperor and the elders of Niveden. Now, go and play with your cousins." While I will never understand his explanation, at least he answered my question. Nivens all have the same power and visibility. On the other hand, other Akeens that are not Nivens have different abilities. For them, each citizen is unique. Sometimes, a few of them share the same power, but that seldom happens. When Emperor McQuinn's storm Aaron ravaged Akea, the elders said that he went to our town and was greeted by its silence because everybody hid in their houses out of fear. He took the Niven silence for hostility, so he summoned storms to ravish Niveden. There was severe flooding, and he assumed the Nivens had died. He left with his throng, declaring Niveden dead, but he could not have been more wrong. The tree houses that Nivens built sheltered them from the flood. The Niven population suffered some casualties, though. Some unlucky ones that were out gathering food for the clan died, but most Nivens survived. After the flood, Nivens gathered the dead and placed the bodies at the center of the village. They uttered prayers and burned the bodies. Unfortunately, the smoke could not be concealed. It was such a tragic mistake. It had not occurred to them that the smoke would rise higher than the mountains. The palace soldiers saw the smoke and realized that the town had survived. In a matter of minutes, the province was once again marauded. McQuinn's storm brought soldiers by summoning the clouds to transport entire troops at one instance. The others who came later rode horses. Still, others came on foot, closing the distance to Niveden at a frightening speed. The Akeens didn't see the Nivens because they turned invisible and hid in their treehouses, waiting for the palace soldiers to leave. When McQuinn Storm saw what was causing the smoke, maybe he felt compassion inside his evil chest because he struck lightning towards the piles of bodies until nothing was left save for some skulls and bones that the bolts of lightning missed, leaving only the ashes behind. To prevent any further attack from the Emperor, Nivens concealed themselves, embraced their heritage, and have been cloaked by invisibility ever since. Since that terrifying day, Akeans have called Nivet the ghost town. Nobody from the province argues against that name. Niven saw the Emperor's power and would do everything not to arouse his suspicion about the remaining Niven's presence. Nowadays, Nivens rarely become visible anymore, even if there were no outlanders in the province. As moon turns came and went, they noticed that their skin had gone gray because sunlight never touched their skin while they were invisible. Many moon turns later, I was born, and this was the Nivedin that welcomed me. The infamous ghost town. I may be young, and the stories sound like mere myths to my ears, but I believe all of them. That is why carrying Kino's coins, 5 of them to be exact, felt like I committed a heinous crime, one so shameful that it would likely not be pardoned by our elders. Sneaking out of Nivedin was frowned upon. It would make Akean suspicious of our existence, and no Niven wanted that. But Kino was just a boy, and I felt sorry for him. I cannot do anything to help him, no matter how much I want to. I'm about his age, I figured, give or take 1 or 2 moon turns. At first, I did not feel warm towards Kino because I was raised to hate all Akeans. I was told that they were heartless, ruthless, and in all ways, evil. I even remember drawing images of them, putting horns and tails on their bodies. That was how much I despised them. Until that first time I got the courage to climb down Mount Rikis to explore the other side of the world. That fateful day when I met Kino. It was morning, and the fog still covered the mountains. I made myself visible for a while, and my gray skin glowed under the faint sunlight. I found it ugly, but it was something I had to live with. Mother said that the longer we kept ourselves invisible, the paler our skin would become. So as moon turns went by, I got grayer. Whenever I caught sight of myself in mirrors, it was hard to disagree with those who branded us as ghosts because we pretty much looked the part. I think Nivens could even fool ourselves into believing we really were ghosts. What more proof did anyone need? We roamed the mountains, blended with the forests, turned visible and back to invisible, and went on with our lives hiding from the rest of Akea. I climbed down the mountain. The rocks were sharp and slippery, and I lost footing somehow. I fell, losing control of my invisibility, and passed out. The cold water woke me up, and my heart wildly pumped when I stared into a pair of worried eyes the color of a newly sprouting leaf. They belonged to Kino. "You've been out for an hour," he said. He was chewing something. Then he spat it out onto his palm. It was dark green. "Don't worry. This isn't going to hurt," he said calmly, his eyes still locked into mine. When his fingers touched me, he tensed. Perhaps he thought that my gray skin would be cold, but as he continued rubbing the dark green concoction against my arm, he relaxed. I held my breath because he was so close to me. He was an Akean, and at the time, I was unaware of what sinister plot could have been going on inside of his crazy, evil head. Rule number 1, make people believe you are a ghost. Rule number 2, never ever speak. For how can ghosts speak? These were a few of the Niven tenets. Anyone caught breaking them would face flogging at our town hall or be locked up in our town dungeons. "What's your name?" he asked. I stared at him. "Why are you so gray?" I dared not speak, but since I was hurt, I let him tend to me. He brushed my curly, blonde hair away from my face, and I flinched. His soft laughter filled my ears. "It's all right," he said. I kept silent. "I'm Kino," he started. "I usually pass by here when I go to the public market to trade." He was evidently trying to make conversation. Not that I did not want to talk to him. It just did not feel right. So I sat long enough to wait for him to finish. I tried to feel my feet, they were fine. When there was no more blood, and my arm looked like moss from all the green stuff he lathered on me, I stood up and ran away from him. "Wait!" he shouted after me. "What's your name? Where do you live?" I looked back, wondering if I should give him my name. It seemed wrong, but his eyes were so innocent that I did not think he would do me any harm. "Pyper," I said. Then I made myself invisible. His face paled as realization probably dawned on him that he attended to a ghost. I walked away on tiptoe, avoiding the leaves on the ground so as not to make any noise. Any twigs breaking or dried leaves crushing under my feet could make him doubt that I was a ghost. I thought that was the only time I would ever break a Niven rule, allowing myself to be seen by someone else. I was wrong. When I was safely back in the mountains, I sat on a patch of green grass and watched Kino as he picked through his rucksack. I was careful not to reveal myself unconsciously. He looked at the spot where I vanished before walking away. He moved slowly before breaking into a full sprint as a sense of fear had overcome him.